turn that thing on first? That'd be a good idea. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He supplies my every need. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He is everything to me. I don't have fortune, I don't have fame, but since I've met him, I have a good name. Material blessings, I don't have much, but he has filled me with his love. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He supplies my every need. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He's everything to me. If I lose it all tomorrow, have to suffer for his sake, there's no need to beg or borrow. He'll be with me all the way. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He supplies my every need. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He is everything to me. I have a hope beyond the stars, but it doesn't seem very far. What makes that hope so dear is my Lord, and He is always near. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He supplies my every need. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He is everything to me. He's the lily in life's valley. He's the one who walks with me. Never leave me nor forsake me. He's my friend in time of need. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He supplies my every need. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He is everything to me. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He supplies my every need. I'm satisfied with Jesus. He is everything to me. Amen. Brother Garrett, come on.
Kids usually sing it with us.
Turn with me if you would to Genesis chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37. Start reading verse 1. And Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought them to his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream, which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheep arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheep stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheep. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams, and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun, and the moon, and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, for this day, we thank you for the ability to be here, Lord. Thank you for your word, Lord, blessing and this. Pray that we just speak through it today, Lord. We speak through me, Lord, and we say all we would have, and nothing more. So just make this. Good. We see here Joseph, he's his father's favorite child. Things are seeming to go well for him. He's trying to be faithful, be a good worker. It says he brought unto his father their evil report while his brothers and him were tending sheep. So he's trying to be faithful, he's trying to be a good worker, and he's trying to do what's right. And we see because of that, his brothers envied him and hated him. And then we see he has this dream, and I think we all know the story of Joseph, but we know that he could interpret dreams. So I believe he somewhat understood what this dream was referring to. And if you look at the text, clearly everyone pretty much understands that the dream means that Joseph will one day be the leader, he will be in charge. But his path there is not going to be, I'm sure, what he would have expected. And I'd like to take a few minutes and just look at how he got there. You know, Joseph, I don't believe that he was prideful, and based on his testimony through the Bible, we know he was his father's favorite child, but I don't think that he was one who would rub it in his brother's faces or try to act like he was big stuff. I believe that he was a very humble and very godly person. If we look at the next few verses, in verse 12, it says, And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. You see here again, Joseph, he's there, he's ready and willing to do what his father's told him to do. He's trying to be faithful and be of service and do his father's will. Let's look at let's go down to verse 20. Now let's read verse 13. It says, And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock at Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. Verse 15. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed thence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. It says, and Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his fathers again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was coming to his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes, and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him. For he is our brother and our flesh, and his brethren will content. Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen, and they drew and lifted Joseph up out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph from Egypt. So we see here, as Joseph is just seeking to serve his father and seeking to be faithful, his brethren, because of their envy and because of their hatred for him, throw him in a pit, and they sell him to Israel, or the Egyptians.
Yes.
It doesn't seem very fair, does it? And there's a lot of times in life where we try to do the right thing, we try to serve God, but it doesn't always go our way. We look at chapter 39. Chapter 39, verse 1, it says, and Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him at the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had he put into his hand. And it came to pass from that time that he made him overseer in his house, over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught that he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. We see here, even after Joseph gets sold into slavery, he still stays faithful. And it reminds me of the verse that says to do everything heartily as unto the Lord. You know, Joseph could have sold, and he could have been upset, but he was still faithful in the position that he was given. And I think of how many times just in working my job, you know, how many times do we get the attitude of, oh, well, I don't want to make somebody else money, so, you know, they need to pay me more, just I won't work as hard. But we're supposed to do all things as unto the Lord. We're supposed to do all things for the glory of God, whether it's fair or not. The position that Joseph is in here is not fair at all. He did nothing to deserve to be sold to the Egyptians, but he stays faithful where he's at. Read verse 7 through 12, it says, and it came to pass after these things, that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph, day by day, that he hearkened not to her, to lie by her, or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there with him. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled him out. We see here, Joseph, even though tempted, stays faithful. He rejects the temptation of the devil.
Yes.
You know, he could have been thinking in his mind, oh well, I'll get payback to Potiphar for using me like this. You know, I've done all this for Potiphar. I should get something out of it. But he didn't. He stayed faithful. He didn't allow the temptation of the devil to get into his mind and get into his heart. He stayed faithful to God. If we look at verse 16, it says that she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, the Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us, came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, she spake unto me, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were bound. And he was there in the prison. We see again, as Joseph tries to be faithful, again, he's put in prison. It's not fair. He doesn't deserve to be there, but he's put in prison, even though he tried to do what's right. Let's continue on verse 21. It says, But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. And the keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made to prosper. We see again, even in this situation, Joseph just stays faithful. You know, have you ever felt like no matter how much you try to do things right, how much you try to stay faithful, everything just goes wrong? You know, Joseph, I'm sure he had those tempting thoughts and those things run through his mind, but he decided to trust God through it. You know, things may seem to be going wrong to us in situations in life, but it may be God using those situations to make things right. And Joseph could have looked around at all the Egyptians that were prospering and thought, well, how come they get all these blessings? How come they get all this stuff? Again, Potiphar, Joseph was pretty much taking care of everything Potiphar had, and he didn't have to think about it. But Potiphar was really the one who had the advantages of that, and the blessings of that. But Joseph didn't choose to look at what everybody else had. He chose to focus on what God had for him. Look at chapter 40. It says, And it came to pass after these things, that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended the lord of the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butler, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard in the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued the season in war. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream. Butler and baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in prison. And Joseph came in to them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly together? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me then, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and the vine with 3 branches, and as though it budded. And her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, and crushed them in Pharaoh's cup. And I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. For 3 branches for 3 days, and within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee unto thy place. And thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner, and thou wast his butler. But think on me, and it shall be well with thee. And show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. You see here, Joseph pleads with his cupbearer to mention him to Pharaoh, so that Pharaoh can get him out of prison. He's telling him, listen, I've done nothing wrong. I'm here, even though I don't deserve to be. Please, just say something to Pharaoh. You know, at this point, you got to think, okay, it's got to go right for Joseph. You know, 3rd time's the charm. But we see that the baker ends up forgetting about him. In verse 23, it says, Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. If I was Joseph in that prison, I'd be pretty discouraged. I probably would have waited a couple weeks, maybe a month or so, expecting and hoping. But after that time passed, I probably would have pretty much given up. But if you look in the next chapter, if you look at verse 9, it says, Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with the servant, but we had born in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was there with us a young man, a Hebrew servant, the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. Each man, according to his dream, he did interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored into mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon, and they shaved himself and changed his raiment, and came in to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream and interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer to this. You see, even after this, Joseph still, he stays faithful, he stays humble, and he praises God. After everything Joseph's been through, he still gives the honor and the glory to God. A lot of times when we go through hard times and we feel we don't deserve them, we can get prideful and get upset because we think we deserve something better. And when something better comes along, if we're not careful, we'll take the glory for ourselves, and we'll think, well, I earned this, I deserve this, when really we should give the glory to God. We should be praising God for it. Look at verse 28. It says, This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was told unto Pharaoh twice, it is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore, let Pharaoh look at a man discreet and wise, and set him in the land of Egypt. When we look at verse 37, it says, And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? Pharaoh said unto Joseph, For as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according to thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only on the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, Bow the knee. And he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zephnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Powell, the priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. So we see here Joseph, after all of this, finally gets put in a place of prominence. He gets the blessing that he's been looking for. He gets the promise of God. If we just stay faithful to God and trust Him, at times it may not seem like the promises in His Word are true, but each and every one is true. So we'll just be patient and wait on God. If we look at verse 50, it says, And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, For God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. God brought him through all of this pain and all of this sorrow and put him in this position. And if we'll just stay faithful, God will take care of us in that way too. We see in chapter 46 that he gets reunited with his family in verse 29. And Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father at Goshen. Presenting himself unto him, he fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said unto Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, if thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren and to his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, My brethren and my father's house, which are in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. Jesus, or God will, his blessings will just stay faithful. Far surpass what we have in the through all of this, Joseph chose to focus on God. And I believe that one of the main things that probably got Joseph through this is those dreams that he dreamed, those promises of God, as he just held on to those, and he trusted God to fulfill them. That's what God did. So look at back at chapter 45, verse 1. It says, Then Joseph could not refrain himself. This is as he was talking to his brothers when he revealed himself to them. It says, Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and cried, Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known to his brother. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians of the house of Pharaoh heard. Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph, doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore, be not grieved nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years, in which there shall neither be hearing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve your posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Joseph decided not to have a victim mentality. He decided to believe that God put him in the place that he did, that God put him in prison, God sold him to Egypt. God did all of that for a purpose. And if we'll just trust that everything we're going through, God is doing for a purpose, we can make it through. It's kind of funny. I believe if you look through the Bible, everyone that God puts in a place of preeminence like this, he always puts them through very hard trials first. And if you think of David, God told him he was going to be the king of Israel, and then he got chased by Saul for years. Saul trying to kill him. You look at Moses, he was told he was going to lead Israel out of Egypt, which that was while he was in the wilderness, but he ended up going out into the wilderness for years. And some of that was by his own doing, but we think of Job. Job, he lost everything. But in the end, God gave him more back than what he could imagine. Even Christ came to this earth and died on the cross. And although, of course, Christ is the King, he came as a servant. And he came and died for us. But when he comes back, he'll be coming back to glory. Amen. Let's turn over to Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12. It says, "Wherefore, seeing also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, and for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and was set down at the right hand of the throne of God." We need to focus on God's promises. Jesus, it says here, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. It says it's for the joy that was set before him. Jesus focused on the light ahead of him. He focused on the purpose. He focused on sitting at the right hand of God. So I just want to encourage you today, don't give up. Thomas Edison said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." So another quote that says, "Success is walking from failure to failure with no lost enthusiasm." And sometimes when we're trying to do what's right, it feels like a failure. But when we try to do what's right and things go wrong, sometimes we feel like we're failing. But maybe God's putting us in a position to be able to help hundreds of people, thousands of people. We never know what God's doing, but if we just stay faithful and trust God is using everything in our lives for good, and we can still fail.
Amen. Not unto us, O Lord, not unto us, but unto thy name give glory. Glory in his holy name, that the heart of them rejoice and seek the Lord in his strength, seek his face continually. It is all about us glorifying God. Whatsoever you do all in the glory of God. I mean, everything. And this is where most of the time we fail, is because we think we're doing it and we ought to get a thank you, a pat on the back. Somebody ought to appreciate us. And certainly people ought to appreciate you. No doubt. But what have they done? Are we doing it for our glory or for his? Are we doing it with those kind of things like that? And so the question would be today, do you believe that faithful is he that calleth you, who also will do it? That God is working out everything after the counsel of his own will, and is going to, when we come forth, will come forth as gold. I mean, there's all these things, these truths that are in the Scripture. Our dear brother Joseph had a perspective. His perspective was, I'm living for God. I'm living for God's glory. And though men may not give me accolades. Matter of fact, they won't give me accolades, won't give me lemonades. They won't give, all they're going to do is sit there and give me things that I don't want. They're going to be against me. All men are against me. All these things are against me. That sounds like Jacob talking right there. And we get the Mully brothers. And yet all the time that all these things were against Jacob, God was preparing a place for Jacob to turn into a great nation of Israel. But it was all against him. Why is it that we get the Mully grubs? Why is it that our bottom lip is so loaded it looks like a front end loader? Why is it that these things? Because our focus is self and not Christ. I said our. I didn't say yours. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to us. But Joseph, through all that he went through, ended up with one thing that he continually did. And that was get beyond self and get his focus on the Lord. Let's ask the Lord. Lord, if I want to focus on you, I want my perspective to be right. But it's going to take grace. So ask God, the God of all grace, to give us the grace to be what we ought to be for His glory, for His honor. Thank you, Brother Garret. Brother Garret, I'm going to tell you something. Just because you got a microphone on does not mean to turn your voice down. I am louder than you, and I don't have a microphone on. And you can hear me back there a whole lot better than I can hear you back where I was sitting there. All right? And the reason I'm saying that is, I know you hear yourself with the microphone. Because the microphone's turned up, then you turn your voice down trying to not overpower us. You don't have a big one. You don't have a big mouth, first of all. Alright? Alright. I do. I got a big voice, brother Paul. Big voice what I got. I don't got a big mouth, I got a big voice. Alright. Yeah.
You got a loud voice.
Don't say I got a big mouth, John.
No, you got a loud voice.
Okay.